do what you have to do. Google video it if you have to. It's a really great feud, and on a scale of 5 stars, if you want to rate this thing, you can easily rate a 4.5 out of 5 stars, not going all the way because we're kind of uncertain of the direction that we're heading in. I was kind of hoping that Charlotte was going to hold on to the championship Survivor Series. She obviously came through with that, but it would be interesting, too, if we saw things change up a little bit and the Divas were jockeying for position. The title was in the hands of Paige one week, and then the next week it was in the hands of Charlotte, even though it would represent Paige and AJ's feud from 2014, just last year. Would be a little bit different rather than seeing Charlotte dominating all the time as champion, which she has been able to successfully do since winning the title at Night of Champions last September. She's held the title over 2.5 months now as we head to her third month in December. It'll be TLC by the 13th of next month. She will have held that championship a total of near 3 months, which is 90 days. Really impressive reign Charlotte is having, her very first, and that says a lot about Charlotte because not a lot of divas have a very impressive first reign as champion. The only one who really did was AJ, holding it over 295 days. Charlotte could do that, but with the amount of diversity that we're seeing in the Divas division now, I can't see that happening. We have Becky Lynch, we have Paige, we have the Bella Twins, we have Alicia Fox getting a little bit of momentum for the first time in years, so there's so much that could happen in the Divas division, and be it there's so much that could happen, I just can't see, Charlotte holding out of the title for the length of time that AJ did, because there are only so many record breakers in professional wrestling that are allotted, and there are only so many people who can actually have a record that will remain established for what will feel like forever. And I think people like Nikki Bella and AJ are definitely a few of those divas that fit into that category, while others kind of stray away from doing that. So I think those honors should definitely be left reserved, and we should see some diversity and somewhat of a shake-up in the Divas division. It's definitely a reprieve seeing what Paige and Charlotte have been doing, as opposed to seeing the International Alliance and what happened with The Undertaker and Kane and the Bray Wyatts of the world at Survivor Series. So we have gotten to a point of reprieve that we've been asking for forever with the Divas division, which is why I'm really excited to see where we go from here. That's why I've been running a lot of columns on the Divas Revolution. That's why I've been putting over divas like Paige and Charlotte with so much promise. Ever before she crossed over from NXT to WWE, actually, I was, really indicating there was a lot of promise. I was kind of hinting there was a lot of promise with Charlotte. And my analogy of Charlotte proved to be very accurate, because they took Charlotte off NXT very quickly after seeing her in programs with the likes of Emma and Sasha Banks and how impressive she was with the cartwheels and her move arsenal. WWE executives gave her the chance to come over from NXT and perform on Raw and SmackDown in front of a bigger worldwide audience. And she proved, that investment was definitely worth it. And obviously with a huge influence from her father and his friendship with Triple H and Stephanie for years, she got the push. Now, it will be said that because of her father, that's the only reason she's in the position that she's in, and the reputation her family has garnered, from the territorial days to companies like World Championship Wrestling, even TNA. That's why she's given this opportunity. But she has definitely, unquestionably ran with this opportunity and made the most of this opportunity. She's definitely one of those divas. Very few divas have reached up and been able to grab that proverbial brass ring, as they call it, but she continuously becomes more impressive as the weeks go by. From pay-per-view to pay-per-view, she's always finding more innovative ways to hold on to the championship by pinfall or submission or some way of escaping as champion. But what's going to be really interesting is seeing how Charlotte will actually last in, say, a triple threat match or a fatal four-way match, and if that will make a difference in how some of her match results end up, because one thing you have to take into consideration too, throughout this reign, we've only seen a few number of triple threats and a few number of fatal four-ways that Charlotte's actually competed in. She has never defended the championship in a fatal four-way or a triple threat match, and all her matches on pay-per-view have been individual one-on-one matches, kind of program-like matches with the likes of Brie Bella and Paige. So we've never seen her defend the title on pay-per-view in a triple threat match or a fatal four-way match, which is the highly likely opportunity that a diva will actually have the title put on them if that sort of match happens. Now, AJ was one of the few divas who were able to escape all the time from triple threats and fatal four-ways, even though it would seem like a repeat of history with just Charlotte being champion rather than someone like a Nikki Bella or an AJ Lee. At least it would change things up and actually make us think and wonder whether or not Charlotte's going to be able to hold on to the title. That will be the proving ground that Charlotte's eventually going to get to. We're going to get away from solo one-on-one matches, and we're going to see probably triple threats and fatal four-ways be the derivement of everything that's happened with Paige, possibly with Paige being involved. Now, I was really impressed with Paige's victory in the Fatal 4-Way match in the UK a couple of weeks ago. She got a huge response from the crowd like she does all the time, and she came out on top with the victory and became the number one contender as a result of the Fatal 4-Way, obviously because she was the one who initiated the fire between herself and Charlotte when she turned on Team PCB, turned her back on people like Becky Lynch and Charlotte to make herself known in the Divas division for the first time in over a year because she felt like she was being undermined and undershadowed for far too long. Really appreciate that. Because of the shakeup, we don't have Team PCB anymore. We still have the friendship between Charlotte and Becky Lynch existing. Whether or not they'll find a third member of a new team that could be derived from all this in the Divas division in the coming weeks, that remains to be seen, but the Paige feud with Charlotte is just amazing, and it's something that I think is really changing the Divas division for the better, and that's why I've been putting over the Divas division so much, either in written columns or on this show in recent weeks, and I'm sure I can go on record for saying that I don't think I'm the only one who has chosen to give the Divas division the benefit of the doubt, rating it 4.5 to 5 stars on a 5-star for sale rating, and I think that this is something that every wrestling fan should get into. If there ever was a time, just let me say this, if there ever was a time to be a fan of women's wrestling, the time is now. And I'm not talking about Ring of Honor's women's wrestling or TNA's women's wrestling in terms of the Knockouts division. Not saying that I'm not impressed by the Knockouts division, but it's the same old thing reiterated all the time. When it comes to TNA's women's division or Ring of Honor's women's division, of how they're supposed to be so more superior than WWE's. But the thing is, WWE's Divas division, if you haven't noticed, has turned a corner, turned a proverbial corner, and done a 180, kind of in the way of a Demi Lovato or a Selena Gomez, who I just referenced, in the way of a comparison a couple of minutes ago. The thing is, the Divas division has really turned itself around, and if we get a tag team title for them, if we get more titles and more opportunities, allegedly they're supposed to be as good as the men's division. Let's find out. Let's give them more titles to compete for and more of an opportunity, longer matches and matches that are actually more unpredictable than what we've been seeing. And I really like the exposure too. The matches may not be as long just yet, or we might not be getting as more difficult of a challenge for the Divas to actually go out there and put off a great show. But I really like the exposure that we're seeing from the Divas division. For instance, last week on Main Event, I saw a great match between Brie Bella and the Divas champion Charlotte, who was just coming off a successful title defense at Survivor Series, was really blown away by the effort of both these divas in a match that was just the main event of the Main Event program on Wednesday nights on our network here in Canada, Sportsnet 360. Was really blown away by that, and also was really proud of the exposure that they're getting, because about 4 or 5 years ago, we wouldn't have seen this amount of exposure. We wouldn't have seen the exposure the Divas are receiving now on networks like Sportsnet 360 and Sky Sports in the UK. It's just amazing how much exposure they're getting in terms of countries like Canada and the UK and even the US now. More people are not undermining, choosing to give the Divas division the benefit of the doubt more so than actually undermining it or continuously finding ways of overshadowing it. I think the only reason why we overshadowed the Divas division and almost never gave it the benefit of the doubt, jumped the criticism almost instantly, was because we didn't have the likes of Charlotte, Becky Lynch, or Paige in the Divas division to shake it up. We just had the same 4 or 5 divas who were always the focal point. It was rather Stacy Keibler, it was rather her, or Tori Wilson, or a Trish Stratus, who was in the 6 figures long before Tori or Stacy Keibler ever were. And there were very few divas who were actually in the 6 figures, and Trish Stratus was one of those divas you could make an exception for. But now I think there are more divas coming up to the ranks who could easily fit into that category of being a 6-figure producing diva in terms of numbers and the check they're receiving because of just how impressive they are. And I think that more people should be giving them the benefit of the doubt and the attention they deserve. Their 15 minutes of fame is long from being up in WWE, and I just think that more people need to be writing about them in their written columns, talking about them in their video blogs on YouTube, because I know there are those critics out there that almost instantly jump to criticism when it comes to a diva like Charlotte and say, well, the only reason you're there is because of your father. Paige likes to refer to her as Baby Flair, which I find completely and utterly ridiculous. I think that's a slap in the face of the legacies of the Flair family. Obviously, the Flair family has always been subjected to heat and love the controversy of the business, because Flair never did leave the business until he was physically unable to compete as much as what he used to back in the day, and they were forced to retire him in 2008. Then he came back to TNA and wrestled there for a while and is still making appearances on the fucking Independent. So obviously obviously the Flair family loves the heat that they get from wrestlers, loves the heat they get from the fans as fan favorites and heels, and they love the controversy. They love to be in the middle of it. If there ever was somebody who loved controversy as a wrestler, it was Ric Flair, probably more than what his son and his daughter ever did. I'm sure they're getting use out of the controversy, more so Charlotte is getting used to the controversy that she's been subjected to because of the promos that some of these divas have been dropping. I wonder if she even knows what someone like a Paige or a Sasha Banks is going to say it to her until they say it. It's pretty amazing how they go about doing it, and there's just the script in the Divas division is definitely over the top. Stephanie definitely did a smart thing when she started to endorse the Divas division and started putting it over in promos and actually got involved in segments with the Divas promoting the Divas Revolution. They definitely did something worth talking about for women's wrestling in WWE, and that's why we're seeing divas being given the opportunities they've been given on the Diva Search, and we're seeing more opportunities for women on reality shows like Tough Enough now, more so than what we ever did from back in the day. The eras that I remember from 2002 to 2004, there was only one Tough Enough that actually had two women winning, and that was Jackie Gata and Linda Miles, later repackaged into Shaniqua, which was totally ridiculous when she was the manager, the guardian, if you would, of the Basham brothers, Danny and Doug, who I actually had the chance to sit down and interview a couple of years ago about that situation. The thing is, they're doing a great job with it, and I think that more and more people should be putting it over and giving it the benefit of the doubt, which I wish was the case. But unfortunately, it's not. There is a lot of conversation about it throughout social media. The WWE Universe Facebook fan page is blowing up with conversation